Chapter 301, The Heart of Darkness. After the 6 teenagers disembarked from the helicopter, they seemed to feel like they were in a paradise and became somewhat carefree. Completely unaware of the terror within the inner region of the Falling Stone mountain range. Brother Gubai, do you think we can find the Heart of Darkness this time? A second-tier evolved being looked at another handsome young man and asked. The handsome young man, Gubai, was a third-tier evolved being and had the highest cultivation level among the 6 men and women. Gubai smiled, this wilderness is nothing. Rumor has it that the Falling Stone mountain range is still considered a forbidden zone for life. It's laughable. With our strength, finding the Heart of Darkness should be a walk in the park. Brother Gubai is right. The Gu family is an absolute powerhouse in the Sky Blue Base City. Now, with 3 Gu family members who are 5th-tier evolved beings accompanying us, finding the Heart of Darkness is incredibly simple. The 3 5th-tier evolved beings from the Gu family were naturally the 3 middle-aged men accompanying Gubai. Unbeknownst to them, Yili was watching from not far away. As an 8th-tier evolved being, avoiding their detection was child's play. Brother Gubai, I heard that the Heart of Darkness was left behind by a dark race member of the 10th tier after his death. Although it's the heart of a dark race member, it also has a significant effect on human genetic warriors. Yeah, it's said that after consuming the Heart of Darkness, one's cultivation speed will increase, and their genetic level will also advance by 1 tier. Yi Li's hearing was extraordinary, and he naturally heard the conversation of these 6 young men and women. The Heart of Darkness? This was the first time he had heard of the Heart of Darkness in the Falling Stone mountain range. However, it was likely that it hadn't been discovered by anyone for many years, or he would have heard about it back when he was in the Flame Base. Sierra, what do you think? Zer, what do you think? Gubai looked at the girl beside him. She was dressed casually, had fair skin, but her face was cold, as if she had no emotions. The girl called Sierra was a 3rd-tier evolved being. She didn't answer Gubai's question and instead furrowed her brows slightly, as if she disliked Gubai. Yili didn't need to think to understand that Gubai must have pursued this girl many times, but each time he was ruthlessly rejected, as evidenced by her lack of response to Gubai's question. Gubai, upon seeing that she didn't answer him, couldn't help but feel angry. In the Sky Blue Base City, countless women were lining up to marry him, yet this woman looked down on him. Xia Zai's family was similar in strength to the Gu family in the Sky Blue Base City, to the point where Gubai couldn't use any means. Yili thought that although these flowers in the greenhouse were as weak as ants, since they had come here, they should have some information about the whereabouts of the Heart of Darkness. Perhaps he could slip in and investigate. Yili smiled faintly. This method was indeed a good one. He walked over at a leisurely pace. Brother Gubai, should we start looking for the Heart of Darkness now? A 2nd-tier evolved being was excited and looked at Gubai. Yes, the sooner we find it, the sooner we can return. Gubai nodded. Huh? Suddenly, a 2nd-tier evolved being girl appeared bewildered and stared at a certain spot. The others followed her gaze, and they couldn't help but be astonished when they saw what she was looking at. They actually saw someone walking towards them slowly. Chapter 302, only a 1st-tier evolved being. The 6 men and women, including 3 5th-tier evolved beings, were surprised. They could never have imagined that there would be humans here. Could this person not be a genetic warrior? A 2nd-tier evolved being said incredulously. It's impossible. If he were just an ordinary person, how could he have entered the inner region of the Falling Stone mountain range? He must have suppressed his own cultivation level, which is why we can't tell. Genetic warriors could easily suppress their cultivation levels, even as low as a 1st-tier evolved being. Therefore, genetic warriors usually weren't afraid of other genetic warriors who suppressed their cultivation levels. Unfortunately, how could they have known that Yili hadn't actually suppressed his cultivation level? It was just that they couldn't perceive it. Just as they were stunned, Yili arrived in front of them. Are you here to hunt treasures? Yili asked. Upon hearing this, the group of people came back to their senses. They looked at Yi Li, and when they saw his appearance, they were all astonished. They would rather believe that the seas would dry up and the rocks would crumble than believe that such a handsome person existed in the world. Not only Gu Bai and the two second-tier teenage evolved beings, but also one of the second-tier teenage evolved being girls felt somewhat self-inferior when faced with such a person. The oppressive feeling of his appearance alone was suffocating. The three fifth-tier evolved beings were also somewhat stunned by Yi Li's appearance, but they were already in middle age and naturally didn't feel the same way as the young ones. Only Xia Shi, her face remained as cold as ever, as if she hadn't seen Yi Li at all. "Brother, are you also here for treasure hunting too?" Gu Bai looked at Yi Li and asked. He felt uncomfortable inside. In the sky blue base city, besides his family background, his looks had made countless women infatuated with him. He had always been confident in his appearance, but when compared to Yi Li, he felt like they were a world apart. "Yes, I'm here to find the Heart of Darkness, but I've been searching for a long time and still haven't found any trace of it," Yi Li said calmly. Upon hearing this, the 6 men and women were slightly stunned. They hadn't expected that Yi Li would be here to find the Heart of Darkness. This falling stone mountain range is full of treasures. Even if you can't find the Heart of Darkness, you can still find other treasures. "It's just that my luck seems to be quite bad," Yi Li said with a hint of frustration. Gu Bai heard this and thought that although the inner region of the failing stone mountain range wasn't a dangerous place, Yi Li had come here alone and had even spoken such words. Could it be that his cultivation level was quite high? "Brother, what level of evolved being are you?" Gu Bai looked at Yi Li. Yi Li should be a few years older than him, and their cultivation levels might be similar. "I'm just a first-tier evolved being," Yi Li said. The group of people were all a bit stunned when they heard this. They knew that Yi Li had suppressed his cultivation level, and they had thought that he was at least a second-tier evolved being. However, how could they have expected that Yi Li was only a first-tier evolved being? A first-tier evolved being who even suppressed his cultivation level, "It's really ridiculous," the second-tier female evolved being sneered. Although she had been stunned by Yi Li's appearance earlier, in this world, strength was always more important than appearance. When Gu Bai heard that Yi Li was a first-tier evolved being, the feeling of inferiority that he had just felt instantly disappeared. The others felt the same way. Only Xia Shi remained as cold as ever. Chapter 303, The Infected Savage Wolves. Yi Li was momentarily taken aback, then said, "Is being a first-tier evolved being considered low? In my place, I'm considered a top talent." When these words were spoken, the group couldn't help but chuckle. "I say, buddy, your place must be really trashy if even first-tier evolved beings are considered top talents," a second-tier evolved being mocked Yi Li. Yi Li shook his head inwardly, thinking that these guys were so clueless. Could they really believe that a first-tier evolved being could enter the inner region of the falling stone mountain range? These sheltered individuals couldn't see it, but could it be that even these 3 fifth-tier evolved beings couldn't see it either? Or were these 3 fifth-tier evolved beings also sheltered individuals? Yi Li thought that the Sky Blue Base City must not have experienced attacks from the dark race and zombie viruses for a long time, so they were probably unaware of the dangers outside the base city. "By the way, can one join you guys? One feel it's quite dangerous to be alone, and when we find treasures, it'll be satisfied with just a small share of the benefits," Yi Li said. Upon hearing this, Gu Bai smiled and thought to himself, what use is having such a handsome appearance? He's just here to seek protection. "Sure, you can join us," Gu Bai said, feeling quite satisfied that Yi Li had asked to join them. Gu Bai's intention in letting Yi Li join was simply to show off his absolute strength to him. When the time came, Yi Li would definitely be astonished. Thinking of this, Gu Bai looked even more self-satisfied. Roar! Suddenly, the roars of numerous fierce beasts rang out. Before they could react, a group of savage wolves infected by the zombie virus surrounded them. There were more than 70 of these savage wolves, all at the second-tier level. This This, a second-tier evolved being exclaimed in shock. Gu Bai and the others were also taken aback. They had thought that there was no danger in the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountain range. Even Xia Shi, who had always remained icy, showed a hint of surprise on her face. Yi Li clenched his fists, and a playful look appeared on his handsome face. He wanted to see how these sheltered individuals would deal with these savage wolves. Protect young master. With a shout, 3 fifth-tier evolved beings quickly positioned themselves in front and behind Gu Bai. The other members' faces turned pale. They hadn't expected the Falling Stone Mountain range to be so dangerous. They had only just arrived, and a large group of second-tier savage wolves infected by the zombie virus had already rushed at them. With 3 fifth-tier evolved beings protecting Gu Bai, he was naturally safe, but what about them? They didn't have time to be too frightened because the savage wolves were already closing in on them. The 3 fifth-tier evolved beings didn't pay any attention to the others, their only task was to protect Gu Bai. Except for Gu Bai and Xia Shi, the others were all only second-tier evolved beings. Faced with so many savage wolves, how could they resist? Ali! A piercing scream rang out as a second-tier evolved being met a gruesome end. What was even more horrifying was that not even a single bone of his was left behind. Soon after, another second-tier evolved being was brought down by the savage wolves. Retreat! A fifth-tier evolved being shouted loudly, then quickly opened a path and fled madly with Gu Bai. At this moment, apart from Xia Shi, the rest of the group had already died. Xia Shi, being a third-tier evolved being, naturally had much greater strength. As for Yi Li, he still had his arms folded, and the playful look remained on his handsome face. Chapter 304, Xia Zai's shock. Xia Zai's originally icy face turned pale as well. Even if she was a third-tier evolved being, it was impossible to escape from the encirclement of so many second-tier savage wolves. Yi Li smiled inwardly, wanting to see what choice Xia Shi would make before she died. More than 70 savage wolves stared menacingly at Yi Li and Xia Shi. Their eyes were bloodshot, and their sharp teeth glistened. Suddenly, one of the savage wolves pounced fiercely. However, the target of this pouncing wolf was not Xia Shi but Yi Li. Yi Li calmly watched the approaching savage wolf. This savage wolf, infected by the zombie virus, appeared much more ferocious than wolves on TV. Unfortunately, as fierce as it was only at the second-tier level. It didn't know that it provoked the wrong person. Just as Yi Li was about to easily pierce the pouncing wolf through, he was surprised to see the wolf being blasted away by a purple aura attack. Yi Li was surprised. The purple aura attack that sent the wolf flying was naturally Xia Zai's attack. Purple aura was unique to S-level Gene warriors. Yi Li looked at Xia Zai's face, which remained as cold as ever. He had never planned to let Xia Shi die. Now that Gu Bai and the 3 fifth-tier evolved beings had escaped, and the rest of the group had died, Xia Shi might be their only source of information about the Dark Heart. Therefore, he couldn't let Xia Shi die. However, Yi Li never expected that when the savage wolf pounced on him, the usually frosty Xia Shi would take action. Yi Li smiled faintly, thinking that if he were really just a first-tier evolved being, then Xia Shi had saved him once. Roar! After the wolf was blasted away, the other wolves became furious and rushed toward Yi Li and Xia Shi. However, Yi Li was already prepared to take action. He raised his finger, and a terrifying golden aura enveloped it. Swish! 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 The golden aura, as if from a machine gun, swept out from Yi Li's finger. These savage wolves, only at the second-tier level, were no match for the attack of Yi Li's one-yang finger. They fell to the ground one after another, all killed in a single blow. When Xia Shi witnessed this scene, her pupils couldn't help but rapidly contract. Golden Aura, an SSS-level Gene warrior. She hadn't even had time to see it clearly, and all the wolves were already dead. Xia Zai's face, which had been cold as ice, could no longer maintain its composure. She looked at Yi Li and saw that his face was calm as water, with an air of ease about him. She had thought that Yi Li was truly just a first-tier evolved being, but she couldn't have imagined that he was an SSS-level gene warrior. Yi Li looked at Xia Shi, who was filled with astonishment, and calmly spoke, "Are you surprised that I saved your life?" Xia Shi came back to her senses at his words. She stared at Yi Li for several seconds with a stunned expression before her surprised face returned to its cold and frosty state. "Who are you?" Xia Shi asked coldly. In her eyes, a person who appeared in the falling stone mountain range and pretended to be a first-tier evolved being was definitely up to something. "I am called Yi Li," Yi Li replied calmly. Clearly, Xia Shi had never heard of Yi Li's name. "Why did you approach us while pretending to be a first-tier evolved being? What's your purpose?" Xia Shi continued in a cold tone. Yi Li smiled faintly and asked, "Is this how you usually speak to your benefactor?" Chapter 305, The Abandoned City in the Falling Stone Mountain. Xia Shi was taken aback. She hadn't realized that Yi Li was her savior. Her face, cold as ice, did not show any signs of gratitude. She was not well versed in social niceties. "By the way, do you happen to know the whereabouts of the Dark Heart?" Yi Li asked Xia Shi. Xia Shi snapped back to reality and looked at Yi Li, saying, "I don't know." Yi Li looked into Xia Zai's eyes and naturally knew that she was not lying. What puzzled him was how she dared to venture into the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountains without even knowing the location of the Heart of Darkness. "I thought you knew." "Since you don't, then let's leave it at that," Yi Li said indifferently. With that, he turned and started walking away. Xia Shi was slightly shocked. She looked at the helicopter but found that it had already disappeared, and Gu Bai hadn't waited for her. For a moment, she didn't know what to do. Xia Shi watched Yi Li, who had already walked several tens of steps away, and then gritted her teeth and followed him. Yi Li stopped in his tracks, and a hint of confusion appeared on his face. "What are you following me for?" Yi Li looked at Xia Shi and asked. Xia Shi didn't know how to answer. Yi Li smiled and playfully said, "Are you thinking of offering yourself to me?" When Xia Shi heard this, her expression turned cold, and she furrowed her brow. "Even though you saved me, please refrain from saying such things." Yi Li thought that Xia Shi probably only knew how to cultivate. With her S-level genes, she was undoubtedly a genius, being a third-tier evolved being at her age. "Too bad, I'm not afraid of the dark, ghosts, or your sour expression," Yi Li said calmly. Xia Shi felt irritated by his words, but she knew how formidable Yi Li was. She could only glare at him. "If you're afraid of death, you can stay by my side." Ignoring Xia Zai's anger, Yi Li continued. Yi Li thought that he should find some zombies to synthesize now and then see if he could find the whereabouts of the Heart of Darkness. He activated his heavenly spirit eyes to scan and found no zombies nearby, but there were many animals infected by the zombie virus. Yi Li walked while using his heavenly spirit eye to scan, with Xia Shi closely following him. Finally, Yi Li detected a place with a lot of zombies. After walking over, they found it was an abandoned city. The outskirts of the Falling Rock mountain range were filled with dilapidated wooden houses. Unexpectedly, apart from the ruined city, there was another place in the Falling Rock mountain range resembling the ruined city. Outside this abandoned city, they could already clearly see dozens of zombies wandering around. Xia Shi was from Sky Blue Base City, and she had not only seen zombies but had also hunted them. There was not the slightest change in her expression upon seeing the zombies. All of the dozens of zombies were just low-level ordinary zombies. When they saw Yi Li and Xia Shi, they charged towards them in a frenzy. Roar! Roar! Yi Li activated his heavenly spirit eye, and dozens of golden spiritual lights burst out from his pupils. The dozens of zombies instantly lost their combat capabilities, and Yi Li opened the synthesis grid in his mind to combine these dozens of zombies. Xia was surprised. She rubbed her eyes and felt like she was experiencing an illusion. She clearly remembered that there were dozens of zombies just now. How did they suddenly become one? Moreover, this one zombie seemed to have become an advanced zombie. Xia looked at Yi Li in astonishment, as if she were trying to get an answer from Yi Li. Chapter 306. Do you really think I'm a dark race member? Naturally, Yi Li paid no attention to the astonishment on Xia's face. He walked slowly toward this abandoned city. Xia gritted her teeth. As the beloved daughter of the Xia family's head in the Sky Blue Bay City, wherever she went in the city, she was always the center of attention. She had never experienced being treated as if she were invisible. As the saying goes, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Xia had already learned about the horrors of the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountains. If she wanted to survive, she had no choice but to follow Yi Li. She quickened her pace to catch up with Yi Li, and the two of them entered the ruined city. Roar! Roar! The eerie cries of the zombies sent shivers down Xia's spine. Over 100 zombies were charging toward them. As a third-tier evolved being, Xia knew that these were not the same as the zombies in the Sky Blue Bay City's jurisdiction, which were all level 1 zombies. The zombies charging at them now were level 3 to level 4. If she wanted to escape, Xia was confident that she could do so easily. However, it was impossible for her to eliminate over 100 zombies. Xia glanced at Yi Li and found that his face remained calm, as if he had no reaction to danger. Could it be that his expression never changes when facing danger? Yi Li activated his heavenly spirit eyes, and the golden spiritual light began to sweep through the zombies. Ordinary zombies had no intelligence. Under the attack of the golden light, they were like live targets. He simultaneously attacked and synthesized the zombies. Within a short time, all the zombies charging at them had been synthesized by Yi Li. A Tier 1 male zombie and a Tier 1 female zombie appeared. Yi Li checked the other zombies in his system space, excluding the Apocalypse Legion. There was 1 Tier 4 male zombie, 1 Tier 3 male zombie, and 1 Tier 1 male zombie. 1 Tier 3 female zombie, 1 Tier 2 female zombie, and 1 Tier 1 female zombie. Xia looked at the Tier 1 male and female zombies not far from her. She looked into their eyes and found that the color of their eyes was green. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Just now, outside the ruined city, Xia had a feeling that Yi Li had transformed dozens of zombies into a single advanced zombie. Seeing this now, she was absolutely certain. He had turned over 100 ordinary zombies into a Tier 1 male zombie and a Tier 1 female zombie. Xia was secretly frightened. She knew that this was something humans could never do. The only possibility was, Yi Li was of the dark race, and a terrifying one at that. Yi Li felt a bit bored. He looked at Xia and noticed that she was standing there, stunned. Do you really think him of the dark race? Yi Li looked at Xia calmly. He could easily figure out that Xia must have considered him a member of the dark race, and a powerful one at that. At his words, Xia's whole body shivered. Her face, once icy, no longer had any hint of frostiness as she looked at Yi Li with fear. She couldn't understand how Yi Li knew what she was thinking. Recalling when she first saw Yi Li, he had claimed to be a Tier 1 evolved being. Now, thinking back on those words, they were terrifying beyond belief. After a moment, Xia finally came to her senses. She stared at Yi Li in astonishment and stammered, You are indeed of the dark race. Only the dark race can. Before Xia could finish her sentence, Yi Li interrupted her. The dark race can control zombies, but do you really think the dark race can do what I just did, making zombies stronger through synthesis? Yi Li looked at Xia calmly and said. Chapter 307. Why don't you come and eat with me? Xia was once again shocked by Yi Li's words. It was common knowledge that the dark race could control zombies, but she had never heard of them being able to do what Yili had just demonstrated. Yili didn't look at Xiaoxi again but instead examined the Tier 1 male and female zombies before him with a disinterested expression. After carefully probing with his heavenly spirit eyes, he realized that the number of zombies in this ruined city was absolutely enormous. Yili even suspected that all the zombies from the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountains had gathered in this ruined city. Since there were so many zombies in this ruined city, it was time to upgrade all of the Apocalypse Legion's zombies to the 9th tier. 9th tier zombies were nothing to brag about in the entire post-apocalyptic continent. Yili now knew that above the 9th tier, there were 10th tier zombies, and beyond that were the perfect form zombies. Yili had only traveled to 2 relatively small base cities and the wilderness area in this parallel world. This was just the tip of the iceberg on the post-apocalyptic continent. Without much thought, Yili released the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies from his system space. Da, Bai Wawa, and Hongye were all 9th tier zombies now. Yutong and Swordsman All Chi were 8th tier zombies, while Bone Maiden was a 7th tier zombie. Xiaoxi, upon seeing this scene, involuntarily took 3 steps back and felt as if her soul had left her. Golden-eyed zombies. Red-eyed zombies. Purple-eyed zombies. Xiaoxi couldn't even begin to imagine that 6 high-level zombies, a total of 6 high-level zombies, had appeared right before her eyes. This. At this moment, Xiaoxi felt as though all her strength had been drained, and she could barely stand, let alone summon the courage to escape in the face of such zombies. Are you very scared? Yili looked at Xiaoxi calmly. How could Xiaoxi not be scared? 6 high-tier zombies, not to mention the additional lower-leveled zombies, would terrify anyone who faced them. Yili just smiled nonchalantly. If you're scared now, let me tell you that you should never be afraid because everything I do will make you scared for 3 days and 3 nights. Xiaoxi felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Everything he did. In other words, the sudden appearance of these high-leveled zombies was Yili's doing? Xiaoxi stared at Yili in shock. At this moment, a storm of fear had been stirred up in her heart. She could swear that she had never been this frightened since she was born. Yili didn't pay any more attention to Xiaoxi. He had released the Apocalypse Legion and the low-leveled zombies for a reason, to attract the other zombies. After giving the order, the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies moved in different directions. Although ordinary zombies had no intelligence, when they encountered higher-level zombies, they would instinctively follow the higher-level zombies. Yili knew that he had some time to spare, so he decided to eat something first. He took out a box of food from his system space and began eating and drinking. After the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies left, Xiaoxi finally let out a sigh of relief. She stared in astonishment at Yili, now unable to imagine his true level of terror. Gurgle. Suddenly, Xiaoxi's stomach made a loud noise. Xiaoxi was taken aback, and she quickly glanced at Yili, hoping he hadn't heard it. But unfortunately, Yili's hearing was incredibly sharp. He nodded slightly and looked at Xiaoxi. If you're hungry, why don't you come over and eat with me? Do you really think one would eat you? Yili said as he looked at Xiaoxi and spoke slowly. Chapter 308, Is This a Zombie Tide? Upon hearing Yili's words, a touch of embarrassment appeared on Xiaoxi's face. However, she was extremely hungry, so she walked over to Yili. Go ahead and eat, Yili said slowly. Xiaoxi took a piece of bread from the food box and started eating. As soon as she put the bread in her mouth, her pupils widened a bit. It was because she had never tasted such delicious bread before. When you're hungry, everything tastes good. That was an old saying and an eternal truth. As a young lady from a martial family, Xiaoxi had always enjoyed fine cuisine and had never experienced hunger. Xiaoxi ate 3 pieces of bread in a row and drank 2 bottles of milk before finally feeling full. She stole another glance at Yili but found him looking at her. Instantly, her heart skipped a beat. By the way, what kind of base city is Sky Blue Base City? Yi Li asked. Hearing this question, Xiaoxi let out a sigh of relief. Sky Blue Base City is a medium-sized base city with a population of over 30 million. Yi Li thought about it. Annan Base City and Huangjiang Base City had populations of only a few million. With a population of over 30 million, Sky Blue Base City was definitely much stronger overall. Do you really not belong to the dark race? After a few seconds, Xiaoxi finally gathered the courage to ask. Yi Li smiled and said, "Do you think that I could belong to a lowly race like the dark race?" Xiaoxi was taken aback. A lowly race like the dark race? She didn't think Yi Li looked like a member of the dark race at all, he looked more like a human. She couldn't understand how Yi Li possessed such incredible abilities and could control zombies. But the world was full of wonders. Sky Blue Base City was just a medium-sized base city, and there were many things she hadn't heard of. Just as Xiaoxi was about to say something more, she was interrupted by the roar of countless zombies. Roar! Roar! Xiaoxi followed the sound and, at a glance, was horrified beyond belief. From all directions, she saw an unknown number of zombies coming, like a tidal wave crashing down. She had never seen so many zombies before. This was a zombie tide. In her panic, Xiaoxi quickly looked at Yi Li, only to find a faint smile on his face. He was still smiling at a time like this. Xiaoxi would rather believe that the sky had fallen than believe that Yi Li could still manage to smile at such a time. Yi Li's face remained calm, but it wasn't just calm, he didn't seem afraid at all. Facing such a massive zombie tide, he could still smile. Xiaoxi couldn't imagine what kind of person Yi Li was. She couldn't find words to describe him anymore. When the zombies were getting closer, Yi Li gave orders to the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies. Immediately, the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies began to take action. Yi Li opened the synthesis grid in his mind, and his virtual fingers moved rapidly within it, reaching an incredible speed. How is this possible? Xiaoxi thought that she had already been shocked enough earlier, but now she realized that her previous shock was nothing compared to what she was witnessing now. She actually saw that the zombies that had originally attacked were now tearing each other apart. Moreover, the 6 high-leveled zombies displayed unparalleled combat power, causing Xia Zai's pupils to widen to their largest size ever. Chapter 309, Apocalypse Legion upgrades. As Yi Li continued to synthesize zombies, the other zombies were no match for the ones he created and were defeated one after another. From noon until afternoon, Yi Li finally completed the synthesis of all these zombies. Yutong has been upgraded to a 9th-tier zombie. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a chance to draw a random reward due to the synthesis of a 9th-tier zombie. Would you like to use it? Yes, Yi Li replied without hesitation. The virtual pointer began spinning on the roulette wheel and stopped after a few seconds. Congratulations to the host for drawing the rapid gold finger. Yi Li was momentarily stunned. He wondered what the rapid gold finger was. Rapid gold finger, a skill that makes your hand's speed even more extraordinary. Yi Li looked at the introduction of the rapid gold finger and couldn't help but smile faintly. He thought, why didn't he get this skill earlier? This was a real golden finger. Ding! Would the host like to cultivate the rapid gold finger? Yes. Cultivation of the rapid gold finger begins. IO%. 30%. 60%. 100%. Rapid gold finger cultivation successful. Listening to the system's voice in his mind, Yi Li's face lit up. With the rapid gold finger, he would be able to synthesize zombies even faster in the future. Now that Yutong had become a 9th-tier zombie, Swordsman Al-Chi and Bone Maiden had not yet reached the 9th-tier realm. Yi Li used the Heavenly Spirit Eyes to investigate and found that there were an unimaginable number of zombies in this ruined city. Xia looked at Yutong, who was now wearing a white princess-style dress, and remembered that Yutong had been an 8th-tier red-eyed zombie just a moment ago, but now she had become a 9th-tier zombie. In the less than a day since she had met Yili, Xia had already lost count of how many times she had been shocked. She was so overwhelmed that she was no longer surprised. 3 days later, Yili had synthesized all the zombies of the Apocalypse Legion into 9th-tier zombies. However, he had also been discovered by the Dark Race in the ruined city. Crazy Bull Dark Race. At this moment, Yili and Xia were surrounded by more than 30 Crazy Bull Dark Race members. These more than 30 Crazy Bull Dark Race members were all at the 3rd-tier level, and they were incredibly weak. Do you know that no human has dared to come here for at least 3 years? One 3rd-tier Crazy Bull sneered at the two of them. Maybe they don't know that this is a forbidden zone for life. Just 2 insignificant genetic warriors, they really don't know the heights of the heavens and the depths of the earth. One just love these ignorant humans. The more, the better. One heard that humans taste delicious. After saying this, all the more than 33rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members burst into laughter. In their eyes, Yili and Xia were already their food. The thing I hate most in my life is the laughter of the Dark Race, but there always seems to be Dark Race members laughing in front of me, Yili said slowly. When this statement came out, the more than 33rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members were stunned. They never expected Yili to say such a thing. Human, we are laughing right now. What can you do to us? One 3rd-tier Crazy Bull mocked Yili. Yili smiled faintly, then said after a few seconds, do you believe that I can make you see their corpses within a second? The more than 33rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members burst into laughter as if they had heard the funniest joke. Ha ha ha. They laughed as if they had never heard such a funny joke before. Human, it seems that you won't shed a tear until you see your coffin. Even though you're about to become our food, you dare to boast shamelessly. A carefree smile appeared on Yili's face, and he slowly said, even if I see the coffin, one won't shed a tear, because I will never need a coffin. Chapter 310, Do You Believe Me Now? The more than 33rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members were beginning to feel angry. They couldn't understand why Yili was still so arrogant at this point. Human, you dare to remain unfazed even when facing imminent danger. Do you not realize that when we eat you later, you won't be so calm? One 3rd-tier Dark Race member said coldly. By now, Xia already knew how formidable Yili was, and she naturally understood that these 30-plus 3rd-tier Crazy Bulls were simply seeking their own doom in front of Yili. Yili, upon hearing this, gave a faint smile. Ants, they would never understand how vast the heavens were and how broad the earth was. I've said it before, whether you believe it or not, I can make you see their corpses within 1 second, Yili said nonchalantly, looking at the speaking 3rd-tier Crazy Bull. The 3rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race member clenched their teeth angrily. They had encountered arrogant individuals before, but none as arrogant as this. Human, after we're done with you, 111, before this 3rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race member could finish his sentence, he couldn't say another word. This was because Yili's one young finger had already been thrust forward, and it struck like a machine gun, with terrifying golden spiritual light moving at lightning speed. Where could more than 33rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members withstand such an attack? They each had a gruesome blood hole in their foreheads. Now, there was only one of the more than 30 Crazy Bull Dark Race members left, who stared in horror at what had just happened. He hadn't finished his sentence, and so many Crazy Bulls were already dead. Do you believe my words now? Yili asked calmly, looking at the remaining 3rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race member. The 3rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race member was so terrified that he lost his composure. He had thought that Yili and Xia were their food, but he had never imagined that Yili would be so terrifying. At this moment, the only thought in the mind of the 3rd-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race member was to escape. Suddenly, the 3rd-tier Crazy Bull took a step forward, moving at the fastest speed he had ever achieved in his life. He didn't want to die, he really didn't want to die. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape from the palm of Yi Li's hand. With a gentle tap of Yi Li's finger, a terrifying golden spiritual light burst forth. Ali! The third-tier crazy bull screamed in agony as his body was pierced through by the horrifying golden spiritual light. Yi Li wondered if this ruined city was the territory of the crazy bull race. After thinking about it carefully, he had encountered 2 crazy bull dark race members not far from this ruined city when he first arrived in the inner circle of the Falling Rock mountain range. And it wasn't too far from this ruined city. But it didn't matter now, his Apocalypse Legion zombies had all been upgraded to 9th tier zombies. Suddenly, a faint smile appeared on Yi Li's face. Because he already knew that killing these more than 30 unworthy flies had been detected. As for whether it was the crazy bull race, he didn't care. Yi Li, where should we go now? She looked at Yi Li and asked cautiously. After spending this time together, she didn't know whether Yi Li was a good person or a bad person, but she did know that he didn't harbor ill intentions toward her. Let's just play around in this ruined city for now. Something interesting is about to happen, Yi Li said lightly. She was a bit puzzled. She didn't understand what Yi Li meant. What interesting things could happen in this ruined city? Chapter 311, 2 humans arrive in the ruined city. In the ruined city, the territory of the crazy bull dark race. In the grand hall, a majestic crazy bull sat on a throne, holding a valuable glass of red wine in his hand. Seated in the lower right position was a heavy sword-wielding undead, also holding a glass of red wine. Skeleton brother, didn't you mention something important when you came to our crazy bull tribe? Stop beating around the bush. The crazy bull spoke from his throne. He was the leader of the crazy bull dark race, a 9th tier crazy bull. Seated to the lower right was the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead who had escaped. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead pondered for a few seconds before saying, Crazy bull brother, do you know about the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower? When these words were spoken, not only the 9th tier crazy bull but also all the high-leveled crazy bull dark race members in the grand hall were taken aback. They couldn't understand why the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was suddenly bringing up these topics. You mean the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, 2 of the 10 great divine weapons? The 9th tier crazy bull dark race member asked with some astonishment. That's right, nodded the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. Skeleton brother, why did you suddenly mention the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower? The 9th tier crazy bull asked. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead spoke coldly. A demon has appeared in the inner circle of the Falling Rock mountain range. A demon? The 9th tier crazy bull and the high-leveled crazy bull members in the grand hall were all bewildered. What kind of creature was this demon? Immediately, the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead explained in detail everything that had happened outside the Sky Eagle base and in the Abyssal Gorge. The 9th tier crazy bull and all the high-leveled crazy bull dark race members in the grand hall were left dumbfounded. Demon King Yi Li. The Apocalypse Legion. Possessing 2 ancient divine weapons, the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. Capable of controlling zombies and making them stronger. The crazy bull dark race members in the grand hall were all astonished, exchanging bewildered glances. Skeleton brother, I didn't expect you to become fond of jokes after all these years, the 9th tier crazy bull chuckled. He thought it was impossible to believe what he was hearing. 3 9th tier zombies in the Apocalypse Legion. This joke was just too unbelievable. Upon hearing the leader's words, the high-leveled crazy bull dark race members in the grand hall also expressed their disbelief. Crazy bull brother, I swear on my life that I'm not lying. I'm willing to be struck down by lightning if one speak half a word of falsehood. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead declared. At this point, he and Yi Li were mortal enemies. The 9th tier crazy bull was taken aback. Could this be a hoax? Just then, a 3rd tier crazy bull rushed into the grand hall. Leader! Leader! This third-tier crazy bull practically tumbled and scrambled as he entered the hall. Seeing this, the ninth-tier crazy bull's expression turned cold, and he snapped, "What's the rush?" "Leader, 2 humans have arrived in the ruined city, 1 man and 1 woman," the third-tier crazy bull exclaimed in shock. As soon as these words were spoken, not only the ninth-tier crazy bull but also all the crazy bull dark race members in the Grand Hall were stunned. 2 humans had come to the ruined city. Humans who dared to come to the ruined city were typically considered food for them. Fools! Humans are our food, what are you afraid of? The ninth-tier crazy bull scolded. Leader, one of the humans is incredibly terrifying. He was surrounded by more than 30 crazy bulls, but he instantly killed them. I didn't even have time to see it clearly, the third-tier crazy bull said in astonishment. What? The ninth-tier crazy bull dark race members couldn't help but be even more shocked. Chapter 312, Confident ninth-tier crazy bull in the ruined city. 2 humans had arrived, and one of them had instantly killed more than 30 crazy bulls. When this news reached the ears of the high-leveled crazy bull members in the Grand Hall, they were astonished. They couldn't help but wonder if some formidable human experts had come to the ruined city. Can you describe the appearance of the human who made the move? The ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead suddenly asked, as if he had just realized something. That human is a male. According to human standards of beauty, he is exceptionally handsome, about 20 years old. He struck like lightning, and I saw terrifying golden spiritual light emanating from his fingers. After that, more than 30 crazy bulls were completely wiped out, the third-tier crazy bull dark race member explained. The high-leveled crazy bulls in the Grand Hall were still somewhat puzzled and didn't understand what the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was getting at. However, as soon as they heard the description, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead leaped up from his seat in shock, exclaiming, "Yes, it's him. It's him." The ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead seemed to be so terrified that his soul had left his body, and he slumped weakly back into his chair. The ninth-tier crazy bull was startled. After all, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was in the 9th tier, yet it was frightened like this? "Skeleton brother, who is it after all?" the ninth-tier crazy bull hurriedly asked. A few seconds later, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead slowly spoke, "The Demon King. Yi Li." What? All the high-leveled crazy bull members in the Grand Hall couldn't help but be filled with shock. Demon King Yi Li. Among the 2 humans who had arrived in the ruined city, one of them was the Demon King Yi Li, who had terrified the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. The same Yi Li who possessed the Apocalypse Legion, wielded the dragon-slaying blade and the Heavenly Tower, and was an unparalleled powerhouse. "Skeleton brother, are you absolutely certain?" the 9th-tier crazy bull asked. "There's no mistake, it's definitely the Demon King Yi Li," the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead replied with a bitter smile. When he escaped from the underground palace, the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead secretly vowed to maintain his enmity with Yi Li throughout his life. But now, hearing that Yi Li had arrived in the ruined city, he was so frightened. It could be said that his fear for Yi Li had seeped into his bones. Ha ha ha. The 9th-tier crazy bull, on the other hand, burst into laughter as if he had never been so happy in his life. "Crazy bull brother, how can you still laugh?" the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead asked in astonishment. "Humph." The 9th-tier crazy bull snorted coldly. "Since the Demon King Yi Li has come to my ruined city, then the dragon-slaying blade and the Heavenly Tower in his possession will be mine." The high-leveled dark race members in the Grand Hall also laughed. The dragon-slaying blade and the Heavenly Tower were among the 10 great divine weapons. If their leader obtained them, the Crazy Bull clan would undoubtedly become the ruler of the Falling Rock mountain range. Crazy Bull brother, but the Apocalypse Legion led by the Demon King Yi Li, before the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead could finish speaking, the 9th-tier Crazy Bull interrupted him. "Don't say any more. In any case, I'm determined to obtain the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, the ninth-tier crazy bull said confidently. Everyone, follow me to find the demon king Yili. Yes, leader. Seeing this, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead clenched his teeth. If it weren't for Yili, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Then, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead followed the crazy bull tribe's army and dispersed throughout various corners of the ruined city. Chapter 313, Stay Here, Everyone, Zombie Treasure Chest X6. The system's prompt appeared promptly in Yili's mind. Yili opened the zombie treasure chests with a single click, received 300 gene points, 300 strength points, 300 speed points, and 300 defense points. Yili and Xiaoxi were in a room. Yesterday, they looked for the Heart of Darkness in the ruined city. Unfortunately, his luck yesterday was not good. He didn't even see the shadow of the Heart of Darkness. Yili took out a box of food from the system space and began to eat. Seeing this, Xiaoxi also came over to eat. She was no longer as afraid of Yili as yesterday. After knowing that Yili wouldn't do anything to her, she felt endlessly safe around someone like Yili. Hurry up. As long as we find the Demon King Yili, the leader will definitely reward us handsomely. Did Demon King Yili leave the ruined city? Where is he hiding? It's fine if he leaves the ruined city, but if he doesn't, I, the old bull, will let him know what true fear is. The voices of several crazy bull dark race members came in from the window. Yili smiled faintly. As he expected, when he killed more than 30 crazy bull dark race members yesterday, the crazy bull dark race members found out. As for how they knew that he was the Demon King Yili, Yili could figure it out even with his toes. The Tier 9 skeleton undead must be in this ruined city. Yili slowly walked out of the door, and Xiaoxi hurriedly followed him. After he pushed open the door, dozens of crazy bulls were passing by. The dozens of crazy bulls were stunned and hurriedly looked over. The next moment, they were instantly scared out of their wits. In the ruined city, there were two humans, a man and a woman. Who else could this young man be but the Demon King Yili? Everyone, stay here forever. Yili said with a faint smile. As soon as he finished speaking, a demonic light and cold light appeared in Yili's hand, and he waved his knife. Swish! Before the dozens of crazy bulls could even exclaim, they had already been melted into nothingness by the cold light of the dragon-slaying blade. Yili thought that it was fine if he didn't cause trouble for the crazy bull dark race, but how dare the crazy bull dark race come to him? It seemed that he would have to unleash a slaughter. Yili released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. There was the Divine Fist Zombie, Ada, the Ironfoot Zombie, Baiwawa, the Ice Zombie, Hongye, the Petrification Zombie, Yutong, and the Ghost Sword Zombie, Swordsman Ah Chi. Except for Xiaoxi, they were all powerhouses. Look, isn't that Demon King Yili? That's right. It must be Demon King Yili, let's go. Instantly, more than 70 crazy bulls led by the 6th tier crazy bulls rushed towards Yili. More than 70 crazy bulls surrounded Yili and Xiaoxi. Yili looked a little bored. Why did they always like to surround him? Ha! We just found you without much effort. Ha ha ha. The 6th tier crazy bull laughed coldly. Demon King Yili, you must be holding the dragon-slaying blade, one of the top 10 great divine weapons, right? The zombies behind you are the Apocalypse Legion, right? The 6th tier crazy bull continued. Yili smiled and said lightly, since you know, why aren't you afraid? Afraid? Ha ha ha. The 6th tier crazy bull laughed out loud. Chapter 314, Today's purpose is only slaughter. Yili looked calmly at the 6th tier crazy bull and slowly spoke, is it really that amusing? More than amusing, it's outrageously amusing, the 6th tier crazy bull replied arrogantly. Demon King Yili, Perhaps you don't know this, but the dark race cannot control zombies with higher tiers than their own, and zombies will never attack the dark race, the sixth-tier Crazy Bull continued. The sixth-tier Crazy Bull thought that the Tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead was definitely exaggerating. One lo, could there be such a human in this world? Yili was not a human, nor was he a member of the dark race. He was a demon. Then, the sixth-tier Crazy Bull looked into the eyes of the Apocalypse Legion. He had only noticed the dragon-slaying blade just now. With one look, the sixth-tier Crazy Bull was dumbfounded. Purple gold eyes, ninth-tier zombies. With these words, more than 70 Crazy Bulls were also stunned. They had only heard that purple gold eyes belonged to ninth-tier zombies, but they had never seen one before. Humph. The sixth-tier Crazy Bull snorted coldly and stared at Yili, saying, even if your Apocalypse Legion only consists of ninth-tier zombies, they won't attack us. And you? The sixth-tier Crazy Bull looked Yili up and down and said, I can't even tell what your realm is. One can only assume you're suppressing your realm. All you rely on are the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. But it's a pity, you've encountered us. We're going to kill you now and take the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower. How does that sound? A mocking expression appeared on the sixth-tier Crazy Bull's bull-like face. Have you finished speaking? Yili's face remained unchanged. Of course I have, the sixth-tier Crazy Bull replied with a smirk. Now that you're done, you can die. Kill them all, Yili said calmly. With Yili's command, the 6 ninth-tier zombies of the Apocalypse Legion immediately rushed forward. At the last moment of his death, the sixth-tier Crazy Bull regretted it deeply. He couldn't believe that the zombies would actually attack the dark race. Ollie. Most of the more than 70 Crazy Bulls were only at the 3rd tier, and compared to the Apocalypse Legion, they were pitifully weak. In just an instant, more than 70 Crazy Bulls were slaughtered by the Apocalypse Legion. Although Xiaoxi knew that the Apocalypse Legion wouldn't harm her, her fair face was still filled with shock. After all, these were 6 ninth-tier zombies. Yili found it rather uninteresting. Instead of waiting for the Crazy Bulls to come to him, he might as well take the initiative to find them. If he encountered one, he would kill one. If he encountered a pair, he would kill a pair. If he encountered countless enemies, Yili would turn this ruined city into a river of blood. Let's go find the Crazy Bulls, Yili said calmly. Xiaoxi was startled. A human leading 6 high-level zombies to confront a tribe of the dark race. This was, if it had been before, even if Xiaoxi had been beaten to death, she wouldn't have believed it. But now, could she still doubt it? After she snapped out of it, Yili and the Apocalypse Legion had already walked about 10 steps away. Xiaoxi quickly followed. They hadn't walked for long before Yili noticed a group consisting of dozens of Crazy Bulls and over 100 zombies. He no longer wanted to merge with these zombies. Today's goal was simply slaughter. He, Yili, was just that domineering. Chapter 315, Surrender Your Lives. Yili didn't know if the dark race in this ruined city was different from the others, but he had never heard of zombies not attacking the dark race before. Perhaps this was the reason for the Crazy Bull's arrogance. If it were the dark race members he had encountered in the past, seeing 6 ninth-tier zombies would likely have scared them to death. Dozens of Crazy Bulls and over 100 zombies were busy searching for something. Yili slowly walked towards them, with the Apocalypse Legion and Xiaoxi following closely behind. The Crazy Bulls finally discovered Yili and couldn't help but exclaim. Brothers, catch the Demon King Yili. Immediately, the Crazy Bulls and zombies rushed toward Yili. Yili's lips curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He raised the dragon-slaying blade high, and the demonic light and cold light on the dragon-slaying blade were fully revealed. Only the sound of knives could be heard in the air. Flame blade technique. As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon-slaying blade slashed down heavily. Countless fire blades shot towards the crazy bulls and the zombies like a typhoon. Seeing this incoming attack, dozens of crazy bulls were terrified and tried to evade, but it was too late. The fiery blades instantly devoured dozens of crazy bulls and over 100 zombies. Yi Li's face showed a hint of indifference. He didn't find this method particularly enjoyable. He preferred the feeling of blades slicing through flesh. Afterward, he activated the heavenly spirit eyes to search for the whereabouts of the crazy bull tribe. A few minutes later, Yi Li sensed another group consisting of crazy bulls and zombies heading in their direction. Yi Li slung the dragon-slaying blade over his shoulder and waited silently for the crazy bulls and zombies to approach. Xia Shi watched Yi Li's back. His figure wasn't particularly imposing, and he even looked somewhat slender. However, he gave her a feeling of indomitability. She couldn't understand why someone like Yi Li existed in this world. For a moment, Xia Shi, who had always been icy, felt her heart racing uncontrollably. Not long after, a group of more than 50 crazy bulls and zombies appeared in front of Yi Li. The crazy bulls halted in their tracks, looking at Yi Li with astonishment. "Are you Demon King Yi Li?" a fifth-tier crazy bull asked. "Yes," Yi Li nodded. The fifth-tier crazy bull was taken aback. Although he was happy that Demon King Yi Li had appeared before him, he couldn't help but wonder, was this Demon King Yi Li so bold as to not run? Or was it that the Demon King Yi Li didn't take them seriously at all? "Demon King Yi Li, hand over the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, and I can make your death more comfortable," the fifth-tier crazy bull said coldly. As he spoke, the fifth-tier crazy bull saw the Apocalypse Legion and was momentarily stunned. 6 ninth-tier zombies. He had never seen ninth-tier zombies before, but he had heard that their eyes were purple gold. The fifth-tier crazy bull steadied his mind. After all, zombies wouldn't attack the dark race. "Yi Li, I'll ask you again, will you hand over the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower?" the fifth-tier crazy bull demanded. Yi Li smiled faintly, pondering for a few seconds before saying, "I can consider handing over the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, but you need to give up something first." "What do you want us to give up?" the fifth-tier crazy bull quickly asked. "Your lives," Yi Li said calmly. With that, Yi Li activated his swift steps and disappeared from the spot. Chapter 316, Every strike draws blood. Yi Li activated his swift steps and disappeared from the spot, leaving only an afterimage. His speed had reached an astonishing level. The 50-plus crazy bulls couldn't react in time. By the time they realized it, Yi Li was already in front of them. This time, Yi Li didn't use any skills because he felt that this kind of slaughter was unsatisfying. Yi Li lifted the dragon-slaying blade and swung it horizontally. There were no dazzling sword lights, it was a plain and unadorned strike. The sword hit one of the crazy bulls squarely. Ali! The dragon-slaying blade was incredibly sharp. The crazy bull who was struck let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was cleaved in two. The crazy bulls were horrified and stared in fear at this gruesome scene. Yi Li didn't stop after the first strike. He continued with 13 more slashes, each one slicing through the air. 13 more crazy bulls fell victim to the dragon-slaying blade. These crazy bulls couldn't withstand Yi Li's dragon-slaying blade. The blade moved with precision, and before they could react, several more of them lay dead on the ground. "Attack!" Finally, a fifth-tier crazy bull reacted and shouted loudly. The remaining 20-plus crazy bulls and zombies immediately attacked Yi Li. However, even without using any skills, Yi Li wasn't someone they could contend with. It could be said that even if Yi Li stood still and let them attack, the crazy bulls and zombies wouldn't be able to break through his defenses. This was the gap in raw power. Did they really think that Yi Li's attribute points from opening zombie chests every day were useless? Now, Yi Li's defense, if compared to martial arts novels, was like having an impregnable golden bell, unbreakable iron cloth, and the invincibility of the 13 tough techniques. Every waving of his knife cut a white mark, and every slash of his sword stabbed a white spot. The remaining 20 or so crazy bulls and hundreds of zombies had approached Yili. At this moment, Yili's hair fluttered without any wind. His handsome face was full of smiles and he looked like a god that stood between the heavens and earth in ancient times. Swish! Yili waved the dragon-slaying blade, which carried 1,000 levels of killing intent and an invincible aura. In an instant, hundreds of zombies melted into nothingness. When the more than 20 crazy bulls saw this scene, it was as if they had seen the most miserable torture on the 1,800th level of the inferno. They began to escape crazily at the fastest speed in history. Yili didn't chase them. If he did, these crazy bulls would have no chance of survival. What he needed to do was not only start a shocking massacre, but also make the crazy bulls afraid. Xiaoxi looked at Yili's peerless figure from the side. Her heart was almost jumping out of her chest. She didn't know why she felt this way. She really didn't. Yili revealed his side profile and looked at Xiaoxi indifferently. Let's go. Xiaoxi came back to her senses when she heard this, only to find that Yili and the Apocalypse Legion had already walked more than 10 steps away. It seemed that every time she came back to her senses, Yili had already walked 10 steps away. It seemed that no matter what Yili did, she would be shocked. Yili suddenly halted his steps because he remembered something. A cold smile played at the corner of his lips. Go to different directions and kill the crazy bulls and zombies. Yili issued orders to the Apocalypse Legion. Chapter 317, Preparing for a Grand Display. After giving orders to the Apocalypse Legion, Ada, Baiwawa, Hongye, Yutong, Swordsman Ah Qi, and Bone Maiden headed in different directions. Including himself, Yili was preparing for a grand display involving all 7 of them. Then, Yili continued to use his heavenly spirit eyes to scout. This time, as he observed, a faint smile appeared on his elegant face. An 8th-tier crazy bull led a group of over 100 crazy bulls. They had not formed a team with the zombies. These crazy bulls were of slightly higher tier, mostly at the 4th-tier level, with over a dozen 5th-tier members among them. Meanwhile, the 20-plus crazy bulls who had fled earlier were heading towards the 8th-tier crazy bull. Yili walked calmly in one direction, with Xiaoxi following closely. The 20-plus crazy bulls were running for their lives, regretting not having 4 legs. When they saw the team led by the 8th-tier crazy bull, they breathed a sigh of relief as if they had found a lifeline. What's going on? The 8th-tier crazy bull quickly asked. As second leader, we just encountered Demon King Yili, but, the one speaking was a 5th-tier crazy bull who was terrified beyond words. But what? The 8th-tier crazy bull snapped. Demon King Yili is too terrifying. The 5th-tier crazy bull was about to cry. Then, he recounted what had just happened. The Tier 8 crazy bull dark race member was shocked. Is what you said true? Demon King Yili held the dragon-slaying blade and killed hundreds of zombies in an instant? Second leader, it's absolutely true. I can swear that I've never seen a terrifying existence like Yili. It's too terrifying. The 5th-tier crazy bull broke into a cold sweat as he spoke. Trash. The level 8 crazy bull scolded. The Tier 8 crazy bull narrowed his eyes. In that case, the Demon King Yili was nearby. As soon as he raised his head and looked straight ahead, his pupils couldn't help but constrict. A young man slowly walked over. He was handsome and carried a cold knife on his shoulder. Behind him was a girl. Who else could that young man be but Yili? Who else could the girl be but Xiaoxi? Demon King Yili. The Tier 8 crazy bull stared at Yili and said. That's right. Yili stopped and nodded. The Tier 8 crazy bull looked at the knife on Yili's shoulder. He could tell even with his toes that this must be the dragon-slaying blade, one of the ancient 10 great divine weapons. Heaven has a road, but you don't take it. Hell has no door, but you barge right in. Demon King Yili, I didn't expect to catch you so easily. The 8th tier crazy bull sneered. The knife on your shoulder must be the dragon-slaying blade. Where is the heavenly tower? The 8th tier crazy bull continued. Yili smiled calmly. Do you want to see the heavenly tower? The 8th tier crazy bull replied, of course. Alright, then I'll grant your wish, Yili said casually. With that, Yili retrieved the heavenly tower from the system space. A 7-layered quaint black tower appeared in Yili's hand. Upon seeing the 7-layered tower in Yili's hand, everyone was shocked. Wasn't this one of the ancient 10 divine weapons, the heavenly tower? Xia Shi was also astonished. She had heard of the ancient 10 divine weapons, and many factions had been searching for them without success. Yet, Yili possessed both the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower alone. Chapter 318, Why didn't you catch the heavenly tower? A greedy look appeared on the face of the 8th tier crazy bull. Yili, hand over the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, and I'll leave you with your whole body, the 8th tier crazy bull said with a sly grin. Yili smiled inwardly. Although this 8th tier crazy bull had the same tier as him, there was still quite a gap between them. He possessed 2 divine weapons, the 3rd level of the ancient devil tome, and SSS grade genes. A mere 8th tier crazy bull dared to be so arrogant in front of him. I'd love to give them to you, but you have to have the ability to catch them first, Yili said with a hint of helplessness on his handsome face. Of course I have the ability. The 8th tier crazy bull was filled with pride. Yili pondered for a moment and then said, if you can catch them, then I'll give them to you. With that, Yili tossed the heavenly tower into the air and slowly said, Purgatory suppression, suppress. The heavenly tower instantly grew in size, and countless streaks of crimson lightning shot out. These crazy bulls had no chance to react. Boom! A deafening explosion shook the heavens. The crazy bulls instantly panicked. The 8th tier crazy bull and over a dozen 5th tier crazy bulls managed to dodge this attack, but their eyes were wider than they had ever been in their lives. How is this possible? The 8th tier crazy bull couldn't help but exclaim, completely shocked. He had thought. I never intend to take back the things one send out. Why didn't you catch the heavenly tower? Yili said slowly. The 8th tier crazy bull and the dozen or so 5th tier crazy bulls were now trembling in fear, unable to utter a word. Since you didn't catch the heavenly tower, does that mean you're prepared to catch the dragon-slaying blade? In the midst of the 8th tier crazy bull's shock, Yili's words reached his ears. His eyes widened even further, and when he looked at Yili, he saw Yili leaping into the air, landing a few steps away from him. Primordial Demon Slash. As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon-slaying blade slashed down heavily. 3,000 demon and god phantoms burst out, moving at lightning speed. Boom! Another earth-shattering explosion rang out. The dozen or so 5th tier crazy bulls couldn't withstand the power of the primordial demon slash and were turned into nothingness. Now, only one crazy bull remained, the 8th tier crazy bull. The 8th tier crazy bull dared to swear that he had never been so afraid before in his life. His entire body trembled uncontrollably, and the fear penetrated his very soul. Yili's face remained calm, showing no signs of emotion. However, a hint of disappointment lingered in his heart. He never intended to take back the things he gave away. But since this 8th tier crazy bull didn't want them, he had no choice but to take them back. After putting the heavenly tower back into the system space, he held the dragon-slaying blade and walked slowly toward the 8th tier crazy bull. Seeing Yili walking towards him, the 8th tier crazy bull couldn't help but be horrified as if he had seen an evil ghost trying to kill him. Demon King Yili, what do you want? The 8th tier crazy bull looked at Yili in horror. Yili stopped a few steps away from the crazy bull. After thinking for a moment, he said, "I don't want to do anything except to kill you." When the 8th tier crazy bull heard this, he couldn't help but take 3 steps back in fright. The horror on his face was indescribable. Chapter 319, Death of the 8th tier crazy bull. Yili, I am the second leader of the crazy bull tribe. If you kill me, our leader will never let you go. The 8th tier crazy bull still wanted to threaten Yili. Unfortunately, his wishful thinking was doomed to fail. I hate it the most when someone threatens me, but there's always someone who does. Yili spoke slowly. In his eyes, humans and dark race members were no different. Our leader is in the 9th tier, and we also have the leader of the heavy sword-wielding undead here. Demon King Yili, have you really thought this through? Yili had already guessed that the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead had fled to this location. Even if he hadn't guessed, his expression wouldn't have changed. Not only have one thought it through, but I've also thought it through thoroughly. 1. Yili, want to kill you as easily as slaughtering pigs and dogs. Now I'm going to kill you. Are you ready? Oh. A hint of playfulness appeared on Yili's face. Upon hearing Yili's words, the 8th tier crazy bull was instantly scared out of his wits. He never expected that even his threats couldn't reach Yili. Then, the 8th tier crazy bull's expression turned cold as he stared at Yili. Demon King Yili, 1 am an 8th tier dark race member. One can drag you to die with me. He knew that Yili would never spare him, so he had to threaten Yili again. Many people hoped for a desperate struggle, but often, while the fish might die, the net remained unbreakable. Yili hated it the most when someone threatened him, and this 8th tier crazy bull had threatened him twice in a row. Even if he didn't want to kill this 8th tier crazy bull, he had to. Suddenly, the 8th tier crazy bull raised a stone axe and swung it down at Yili. Crazy bulls possessed immense physical strength, and their arms had enormous strength. But compared to Yili, no matter who it was, the difference was too great. Just as the huge stone axe was about to smash into Yili, he raised the dragon-slaying blade and struck out with a slash. Clang! The dragon-slaying blade and the stone axe collided heavily. Without a doubt, the stone axe in the hand of the crazy bull shattered and fell to the ground, turning into a pile of rubble. The crazy bull was horrified when he saw this, and he turned to flee. However, no matter how hard he tried to escape, he couldn't escape from the palm of Yili's hand. Yili activated his swift steps and his speed instantly skyrocketed. Swish! The speed of the swift steps was incredibly fast. The 8th tier crazy bull was still trying to flee for his life, and he had no defense or reaction at all. A glimmer of cold light struck the 8th tier crazy bull, and in an instant, he was killed. From the moment the dragon-slaying blade fell to the moment it was retrieved, the whole process flowed smoothly, taking less than a second. At the same time, Ada, Baiwawa, Hongye, Yutong, swordsman Ah Chi, and Bone Maiden had already sprung into action throughout the ruined city. The crazy bulls were terrified and fled at the first sign of danger. The 9th tier crazy bull and the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead were waiting for news at a certain location. Suddenly, more than a dozen 6th tier crazy bulls rushed over. Leader! Leader! These dozen or so 6th tier crazy bulls shouted in fear, as if they had never been so terrified before. What's going on? The 9th tier crazy bull asked hurriedly. Leader, something big is happening. Then, a 6th tier crazy bull spoke out with some astonishing news. Chapter 320, The zombies approached. These dozen 6th tier crazy bulls were leading a team in search of Yili's whereabouts when they encountered the Apocalypse Legion. After narrating their encounter, all the dark race members present couldn't help but take in a cold breath. 6 purple gold-eyed zombies, 9th tier zombies. The 9th tier crazy bull couldn't help but take in a cold breath. Zombies with a level higher than that of dark race members were uncontrollable, but zombies wouldn't attack dark race members either. The Tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead smiled bitterly. The Apocalypse Legion controlled by Demon King Yi is different. Now it seems that Demon King Yi is too terrifying. Skeleton brother, what do you mean? The 9th tier Crazy Bull asked. In the Apocalypse Legion, there are 6 zombies: God Fist Zombie Ada, Iron Foot Zombie by Wawa, Frost Zombie Hongye, Petrification Zombie Yutong, Ghost Sword Zombie Swordsman Ah Chi, and Devouring Zombie Bone Maiden. When Demon King Yi came to my Abyssal Gorge, only God Fist Zombie Ada, Iron Foot Zombie by Wawa, and Frost Zombie Hongye were 8th tier zombies. Now, they have all become 9th tier zombies. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead didn't need to say any more. The rest of the conversation was self-evident. Upon hearing this, the 9th tier Crazy Bull became restless. Skeleton brother, are you saying, the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead wore a bitter smile again? That's right, one think we are all overestimating ourselves. We've provoked someone who is neither human nor a dark race member. He is Demon King, Yi. The high-leveled Crazy Bulls present looked at each other, their faces filled with shock. Leader, the zombies are here. Suddenly, a loud shout interrupted them, and the dark race members immediately looked in the direction of the voice. They saw 6 zombies approaching from different directions. One was draped in a red cloak, 9 meters tall, with golden short hair, wearing silver-pointed knuckle gloves, and exuding an imposing aura. One looked young, about 12 or 13 years old, with fair skin but a wide and plump body. If you put him on a scale, he would weigh close to 200 caddies. One was dressed in a fiery red robe, tall and slim, with a natural beauty and flawless skin. One was wearing a white princess dress, with a porcelain doll-like appearance, incredibly cute. One held a pitch-black sword in hand, the edge of the sword sharp and awe-inspiring. One was dressed in a misty floral dress, with her long black hair cascading to her waist, like a celestial being descending to the mortal realm. The Apocalypse Legion. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead couldn't help but shout. These 6 zombies approached from different directions. What else could they be but the Apocalypse Legion? The 9th tier Crazy Bull widened his eyes, and as expected, he saw that all of them had purple golden eyes. He hadn't seen them with his own eyes before, but now that he saw them, the 9th tier Crazy Bull couldn't help but be shocked. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was even more frightened. He thought that if the Apocalypse Legion had appeared, then Demon King Yi, that man, should also have arrived. As expected, just as the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead had expected, Yi and a young girl had already come into his view. The Demon King. Yi. At this moment, there were no words to describe the horror of the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. Yi slowly walked to the front of the Apocalypse Legion and looked at the Tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead casually. I haven't seen you for a few days. Do you still remember me? Chapter 321, Find a place to hide. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead would never forget Yi. He and Yi had a deep-seated enmity, like water and fire, with hatred as vast as the 3 rivers and 4 seas. Yi. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead clenched his teeth tightly, as if his teeth were about to shatter. The 9th tier Crazy Bull looked Yi up and down. This was his first time seeing Demon King Yi. Earlier, the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead had described Yi as if he were a legendary figure. Are you Demon King Yi? The 9th tier Crazy Bull stared at Yi and asked. Yes. Yi nodded. Upon hearing this, the 9th tier Crazy Bull's expression turned cold. Although the Apocalypse Legion consisted entirely of 9th tier zombies, there were tens of thousands of Crazy Bulls. What gave Yi the right to remain so calm in front of him? Yi, I heard that you have 2 divine weapons, the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. I also heard that you are a demon who can even fly. Are you really so powerful? The Tier 9 crazy bull sneered. Even if the 6 zombies in the Apocalypse Legion were all Tier 9, so what? He was not afraid at all. The fear he had shown earlier was simply because he was surprised that the zombies would attack Dark Race members. Yi Li smiled faintly. Although there were many crazy bulls, they were nothing before him. Zhao Yun had entered and exited Changbanpo 7 times, moving freely among hundreds of thousands of troops. Today, he wanted to compare with Zhao Yun, ready to take the enemy's head from among the 10,000 troops as if plucking fruit from a bag. Demon King Yi Li, now hand over the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. You have nothing left to hesitate about. The 9th tier crazy bull stared at Yi Li. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion dared to confront a dark race tribe like this. It was intolerable. Xia Shi was deeply shocked. At this moment, there were simply too many dark race members standing in front of her, numbering in the tens of thousands. At the same time, she understood a piece of truth, which was that she didn't know the height of the sky and the width of the earth before. She was just a speck of dust in the world, but she actually dared to come to the inner area of the Falling Rock mountain range to find the heart of darkness. Yi Li smiled faintly. He looked at the 9th tier crazy bull and said slowly, "You really want my dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower?" The dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower were both one of the 10 great divine weapons. By gathering all the 10 great divine weapons, one could pry into a shocking secret. Since ancient times, no one had ever gathered all the 10 great divine weapons. Of course I want your dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. You'll die today anyway no matter if you hand them over or not, the level 9 crazy bull said arrogantly. The tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead also stared at Yi Li. If it weren't for Yi Li, he wouldn't have been like a stray dog. Yi Li, next year today will be the anniversary of your death. The tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead also said coldly to Yi Li. Yi Li was slightly stunned when he heard that. He thought that the strength of this heavy sword-wielding undead race was about the same as that of the crazy bull dark race. Then why did this tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead run when he went to the Abyssal Gorge? Did this tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead think that he could kill me with the help of the crazy bull dark race? Or was he just bragging? Silence, a deathly silence. The crazy bulls were only waiting for their leader's command, and they would all attack together. Yi Li looked at Xia Shi calmly and said, "When the fight breaks out later, find a place to hide. In the Falling Rock mountain range, good people don't die, and neither do bad people. Only foolish people die. I hope you're not one of the foolish ones." Chapter 322, Capture the Leader. First, upon hearing Yi Li's words, Xia Shi nodded. She knew that she had no power to resist in such a battle. Yi Li looked at the 9th tier crazy bull and the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. He spoke calmly, "At this point, what is there left for you to hesitate about? Come at me." With those words, Yi Li gestured with his finger towards the 9th tier crazy bull and the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. The 9th tier crazy bull seethed with anger. As the leader of the crazy bull race, he had never suffered such humiliation. Attack! In response to the command of the 9th tier crazy bull, countless crazy bulls charged towards the Apocalypse Legion like a dark storm. Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion stood still like statues. He took out the dragon-slaying blade from his system space and rested it on his shoulder, his face as composed as ever. The 9th tier crazy bull sneered, thinking that even if Demon King Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion were powerful, they couldn't withstand the wrath of the crazy bull army. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead also sneered. After the brief moment earlier, he had figured it all out. Now, he wanted Yi Li to know what true regret felt like. As the countless crazy bulls were about to attack, Yi Li also gave the order. Kill. Just one word, neither more nor less. With that, the Apocalypse Legion shot out, moving at a speed that was astonishing. A giant fist from Aada, combined with attacks from wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. Baiwawa's Chilan foot swept horizontally, terrifying in its power. Hongye filled the sky like snowflakes, as she unleashed her frigid true energy from her palms. Yutong petrified her enemies, emitting a burst of radiant energy. Swordsman Achi unleashed his death-dealing triple ghost sword and the ghost sword 13 styles. Bone Maiden devoured her foes with her great devouring technique. Yili knew that there were too many crazy bulls, and his goal now was to capture the enemy leader's head from among the 10,000 troops. Suddenly, Yili activated his swift steps. The speed of the SSS-class swift steps was so fast that it couldn't be captured by the naked eye. In an instant, Yili had reached the side of the 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead. Yili was currently at the 8th tier level, and there was almost no chance of defeating 2 9th tier Dark Race members. Therefore, when Yili activated the swift steps, he had already bought a Berserk Potion from the Point Mall. He consumed the Berserk Potion and activated the 3rd level of the Ancient Demon Tome. Instantly, a demonic aura enveloped Yili, making him look like an invincible demon. The 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead hadn't reacted yet when Yili raised his dragon-slaying blade. A cold glint appeared first, followed by a slash like a dragon. Swish! The Berserk Potion could increase the strength of a genetic warrior by 10 times, but the side effects were quite obvious. During the time in Abandoned City, Yili had fallen into a coma for a year after drinking 10 of them. With his dragon-slaying blade held high, Yili struck with a single blow. The 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead were 1 level higher than Yili, so they hurriedly dodged. In the end, the strike did not land on them. Demon King Yili, you are seeking death. The 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead sneered. In his eyes, Yili, without the Apocalypse Legion, was not a threat. Unfortunately, Yili had already consumed a Berserk Potion. Brother Crazy Bull, let's attack together and take the dragon-slaying blade and the Heavenly Tower from Yili's hands. The 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead looked at the 9th tier Crazy Bull. Good, today, Demon King Yili will die on the spot. The 9th tier Crazy Bull declared coldly. Chapter 323, Fighting 2 9th tier Dark Race members alone immediately, the 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead launched a fierce attack on Yili. The 9th tier Crazy Bull wielded a star-studded stone axe, while the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead brandished a 1000-catty heavy sword. The demonic energy from the 3rd level of the Ancient Demon Tome had already been pushed to the extreme by Yili. The aura around him and the dragon-slaying blade became even more intense. Just as the attacks from the 9th tier Crazy Bull's star-studded stone axe and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead's 1000-catty heavy sword were about to hit Yili, he swung the dragon-slaying blade. Clang! The star-studded stone axe, heavy sword, and dragon-slaying blade collided heavily. These were weapons used by 9th tier Dark Race members, and they weren't cut down by the dragon-slaying blade in a single blow. Following that, the 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead increased their strength. However, it was simply absurd that they tried to compare strength with Yili. After all, had Yili's strength not improved significantly after opening the zombie treasure chests for so long? Coupled with the Berserk Potion, Yili's strength had reached a terrifying level. Is this all the strength you have? Yili said lightly. The 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead were taken aback. They hadn't expected Yili's strength to be so astonishing. As 9th tier Dark Race members themselves, they had planned to overpower Yili with their strength. However, Yili's calm demeanor in the face of their attack surprised them. As the saying goes, one real strong man can defeat 1,000,000 troops. Yili took a few steps back, raising the dragon-slaying blade high and coldly announcing, Flame Blade Technique. Countless fire blades burst forth from the dragon-slaying blade, rushing towards the 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead. The 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead quickly used their respective skills to defend against the attack. Power of the Stars. After defending against the Flame Blade technique, the 9th tier Crazy Bull shouted, and the color of his star-studded stone axe turned crimson. He raised the star-studded stone axe and flew towards Yili at lightning speed. Black Cloud Sword. The 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead also shouted coldly, and the 1000-catty heavy sword emitted a demonic light, looking quite terrifying. Yili took a few steps back, a mocking expression appearing on his face. He thought to himself that 9th tier dark race beings were indeed different, especially when there were two of them. Dealing with them would be a bit tricky. Primordial Demon Slash. One word at a time, he spoke slowly. Suddenly, 3,000 god and demon phantoms attacked the 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead. After consuming the Berserk Potion, Yili's strength had even surpassed that of a 9th tier Dark Race member. It was just that there were two of them. The 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead were horrified. Even if they used all their strength, they couldn't have imagined that Yili could unleash such a terrifying attack. They had thought that, aside from the Apocalypse Legion, Yili was just a paper tiger. But they had never expected the situation to turn out like this. The 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead had no time to dodge because the 3,000 god and demon phantoms were too fast. So they could only defend themselves by using their strongest skills. Boom! The attack from the 3,000 god and demon phantoms hit the 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead. Both of them were seriously injured, and at the same time, the effects of the Berserk Potion had worn off. The 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead exchanged glances. Suddenly, they both had the same thought in their minds. That was, to escape. Chapter 324, Frenzied Escape. Yili thought that he had underestimated the power of 9th tier Dark Race members. He had expected that, after the effects of the Berserk Potion wore off, he could at least kill one of them. He didn't want to continue drinking the Berserk Potion because he might fall into a deep sleep again, and he didn't want to be unconscious for a dozen days or more. After being hit by the 3,000 god and demon phantoms, the 9th tier Crazy Bull and the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead had the idea of fleeing for their lives. They didn't know if Yili would launch another terrifying attack at them. At this point, the Apocalypse Legion had killed countless Crazy Bull beings, but their numbers were still overwhelming. Dark King Yili, for the injuries you inflicted upon me today, I will return them to you 100-fold in the future. Let's hope we meet again under different circumstances, the 9th tier Crazy Bull said coldly to Yili. Retreat. With that command from the 9th tier Crazy Bull, the Crazy Bulls quickly fled the area. Their speed was the fastest they had ever reached since birth, and they wished they had grown a few extra legs. Yili had no intention of pursuing them. He was already too exhausted to chase them, and he thought that being a 9th tier evolved being was still too weak. If he had been a 9th tier evolved being, neither the 9th tier Crazy Bull nor the 9th tier Heavy Sword-wielding Undead would have been able to escape. During the escape of the Crazy Bull, the Apocalypse Legion killed many Crazy Bulls, and the ground was already covered in blood. She hid in a corner, watching this scene. There were no words to describe her feelings at this moment. Only now did she understand what it meant to be a frog in a well. From birth, she had been an outstanding talent, and very few of her peers could compare to her. This had led to her developing a cold and aloof personality. But now, she understood that her pride in her talent was laughable in the eyes of some people. Yili put the dragon-slaying blade back into the system space. His face, which had been as pale as jade, was now even paler. This was a side effect of the Berserk Potion. Drinking just one bottle wouldn't cause him to fall into a deep sleep, but it would leave him extremely weak. Bai Wawa, Hongye, Yutong, swordsman Al Chi, and Bone Maiden gathered around Yili. Master, the 6 zombies called out in unison. Yili nodded and then found a place to sit down. He needed to recover slowly. Although he hadn't killed the 9th tier crazy bull and the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead, they were definitely seriously injured. It was unlikely that they would recover anytime soon. Yili thought that he should find the Heart of Darkness first. The Heart of Darkness was the heart of a 10th tier dark race, and it might have some unexpected effects for him. Just like when he ate the purgatory fruit, he had comprehended the ancient demon tome. If he found the Heart of Darkness and consumed it, he might gain access to other incredible attack skills. Xiaxi walked up to Yili and, with a fearful look in her eyes, asked softly, "Yili, why do they call you Demon King Yili?" She had wanted to ask this question for a long time but had been too afraid to do so. Now her curiosity got the better of her, and she mustered the courage to ask. Yili smiled faintly. "Perhaps they think I'm approachable." Xiaxi was taken aback. She glanced at Yili's somewhat pale face and asked, "Yili, are you injured?" Chapter 325, Journey to the Dark Land. Yili didn't answer Xiaoxi's question. It was already evening, and the setting sun painted half the sky red like a burning cloud. "Well, stay here for the night," Yili said slowly. He needed some rest. He found a place and lay down. He slept through the night and woke up the next morning. Zombie Treasure Chest X6. Yili opened the zombie chests with a single command: 800 genetic points, 800 strength points, 800 speed points, 800 defense points. A super treasure map. After a night's rest, Yili's energy had fully recovered, and his face, once pale, now showed a healthy color. Luck was like chewing a piece of gum, once it started, you couldn't stop. A super treasure map. Could it be? Yili suddenly thought of an astonishing possibility: the treasure of this super treasure map might be the Heart of Darkness. What an incredible possibility! Without further thought, Yili activated the super treasure map. Coordinates: Dark Land. The coordinates of the Dark Land appeared in Yili's mind. Yili smiled faintly. Just from the name, Dark Land, he knew it was no ordinary place. Perhaps it really was the Heart of Darkness. He took out a box of food from the system space. After accumulating for so many days, there were countless boxes of food in the system space. After eating their fill and drinking, Yili and Xiaxi set off for the Dark Land. The Dark Land was a considerable distance from the ruined city. Yili and Xiaxi slowly walked out of the city. Along the way, they encountered many dark races and zombies, as well as some animals infected by the zombie virus. Yili killed the dark races and the animals infected by the zombie virus with ease. He synthesized a first-tier male zombie and a first-tier female zombie. As they got closer to the Dark Land, Yili heard some commotion. "We, the Golden Wind Exploration Team, are secretly heading to the Dark Land. Do you know why?" "Why?" "I've received reliable information that the Heart of Darkness is hidden in the Dark Land." "What?" More than a dozen men were stunned. Such news was explosive to them. Yili glanced at the men's levels and found that all of them were 4th-tier evolved beings, which was not bad. "Is the Heart of Darkness really in the Dark Land?" one of the 4th-tier evolved beings asked incredulously. "That's right. The team leader and deputy team leader should be arriving soon." "Let's wait here," one of the men replied. Soon, more than a dozen men sat down and began to rest. Listening to the conversation among the dozen or so men, Yili smiled faintly. Just as he had thought, the treasure of this super treasure map was indeed the Heart of Darkness. Yili approached, with Xiaxi following closely behind. One of the Golden Wind Exploration Team members was discussing the Dark Land with his companions when he suddenly froze in disbelief and rubbed his eyes. The other members of the Golden Wind exploration team also noticed and followed his gaze. When they saw what the man was looking at, they were all dumbfounded. Humans? A man and a woman? The more than a dozen members of the Golden Wind exploration team couldn't believe that two humans had appeared before them. Just as the Golden Wind exploration team members were stunned, Yili and Xia Shi had already arrived in front of them. Chapter 326, I've reserved the Heart of Darkness. The members of the Golden Wind exploration team were all dumbfounded. They never expected to encounter humans here. And, just a moment ago, Yili and Xia Shi were in the distance, and they couldn't see their faces clearly. Now, Yili and Xia Shi were right in front of them, and they were shocked to their core. They are too good-looking, aren't they? The members of the Golden Wind exploration team couldn't have imagined that there were humans in this world who looked so good. Yili had a handsome and refined appearance, with starry bright eyes. Especially his eyes, once seen, could never be forgotten. It was as serene as a tranquil night and as deep as a boundless sea. Xia Zai's face was delicate as jade, her long black hair cascading down like a waterfall, making her look like a fairy descended from heaven. Have you seen enough? Yili spoke calmly. The members of the Golden Wind exploration team snapped out of their daze at his words. Why are you here, little brother? One of the fourth-tier evolved beings asked with hostility, looking at Yili. As soon as he said this, more than a dozen members of the Golden Wind exploration team looked at Yili, wondering how Yili would answer. Yili smiled faintly. Are you qualified to know why I'm here? A dozen members of the Golden Wind exploration team were shocked. They didn't expect Yili to say such a thing. I've explored the Falling Rock mountain range for so many years, but I've never seen such an arrogant person. I think you probably don't know how cheap human lives have become since the apocalypse broke out, a fourth-tier evolved being said disdainfully. All the members of the Golden Wind exploration team wore contemptuous smiles. In their eyes, Yili was just an ignorant person. You just said the Heart of Darkness was in the Dark Land, right? Yili spoke slowly, and his expression remained unchanged. As soon as they heard this, the members of the Golden Wind exploration team all understood. Yili's purpose for coming here was the same as theirs, to find the Heart of Darkness. That's right. The Heart of Darkness is definitely in the Dark Land, a fourth-tier evolved being said with a smile. The members of the Golden Wind exploration team were not worried, because Yili and Xia Shi were really not worth mentioning in their eyes. They could naturally tell that Xia Shi was a Tier 3 evolved being, but they couldn't tell Yili's realm. However, they believed Yili's level couldn't be high, as even a first-tier evolved being could suppress their levels. Someone who was with a third-tier evolved being couldn't possibly be a powerful individual. Xia Shi shook her head when she saw this. These people had spoken so arrogantly in front of Yili, and she already knew what their fate would be. Since the Heart of Darkness is in the Dark Land, you can leave. The Heart of Darkness has already been reserved by me, Yili said calmly. The members of the Golden Wind exploration team were all stunned. Even if they preferred to believe that the apocalypse hadn't occurred, they couldn't deny that Yili had become incredibly arrogant. Do you really not know how to write the word death? A fourth-tier evolved being stared at Yili. In the apocalypse, except for the base cities, human lives were as cheap as grass, especially in the wilderness. Yili's expression remained unchanged as he heard this. It was as if he hadn't heard at all. He looked around and picked up a small branch. With the small branch, he drew a character on the ground that looked like the word death. Is this how you write death? Yili asked calmly. Chapter 327, How do you write the word death? The members of the Golden Wind exploration team were infuriated by this scene. You brat, I think you're asking for trouble, shouted a fourth-tier evolved being in anger. Yili smiled calmly, I neither accept toasts nor threats, because no one is qualified to have a drink with me. His words left the members of the Golden Wind exploration team seething with rage. You're looking for death. With a swift motion, a fourth-tier evolved being unsheathed a Nepalese kukri knife and swung it fiercely at Yili. The Nepalese kukri knife in the fourth-tier evolved being's hand was custom-made, extremely powerful, and gleamed with cold light. Yili sighed inwardly. Why were there always so many uncultured flies around? Flies should have their own self-awareness. Without any attempt to dodge, Yili acted as if he hadn't noticed the Nepalese kukri knife coming towards him. The members of the Golden Wind exploration team saw this and were delighted, as they had thought that Yili was acting so arrogantly because he had some strength. Now, it seemed that they were mistaken, not just mistaken but profoundly so. Because Yili had been scared out of his wits and didn't know how to avoid it. The members of the Golden Wind exploration team could easily imagine how tragic Yili's fate would be. Xiaoxi was also shocked. She never expected Yili to stand there without dodging. If the Nepalese kukri knife struck, Xiaoxi couldn't even finish her thought. The Nepalese kukri knife in the hands of the fourth-tier evolved being had already struck Yili's body heavily. Clang! To everyone's astonishment, the Nepalese kukri knife made a sound as if it had collided with steel when it struck Yili's body. What? The members of the Golden Wind exploration team couldn't help but gasp in amazement. The Nepalese kukri knife made a sound as if it had collided with steel when it struck Yili's body. This was a knife. And it was a custom-made Nepalese kukri knife. They couldn't even begin to imagine how tough Yili's body must be. No way, this can't be happening. How could my Nepalese kukri knife be like this? The fourth-tier evolved being exclaimed in shock. Yili smiled faintly. Nepalese kukri knife? You mean the thing you just tried to hit me with? With those words, Yili slowly raised 2 fingers and placed them on the Nepalese kukri knife, then twisted his fingers lightly. Crack! With a crisp sound, the Nepalese kukri knife shattered into pieces. How was that possible? The sound of steel colliding with Yili's body had left them witnessing the most unbelievable scenes in history. And now Yili broke the knife with his bare hands. Yili secretly smiled. Ants were easily shocked. As a Tier 8 evolved being, the defense of his body was beyond the imagination of these Tier 4 evolved beings. More than a dozen members of the Golden Wind exploration team were already dumbfounded. They had thought that Yili was scared silly when he didn't dodge just now. But now they realized that they had made a huge mistake. At this moment, there were no words that could describe the shock of these dozen genetic warriors. They had never been so shocked since they were born. Xiaoxi let out a sigh of relief. When Yili didn't dodge just now, it had startled her. But now, she finally understood that someone like Yili had no need to worry about anything at all. Yili looked calmly at the dozen or so members of the Golden Wind exploration team. After a few seconds, he slowly spoke, "So how do you write the word death?" Chapter 328, The Captain of the Golden Wind Exploration Team. The dozen or so members of the Golden Wind Exploration Team were terrified when they heard Yili's question. They had initially believed that Yili was like a lamb to the slaughter, and they were the executioners. But now, everything seemed to have been turned upside down. We are members of the Golden Wind Exploration Team, and our captain and vice-captain are about to arrive, said a fourth-tier evolved being in a frightened tone. Yili smiled faintly. He despised being threatened more than anything else. Why did people always do this? In fact, if you don't attack me, there's still a chance for you. But now, you're in a hopeless situation, Yili calmly stated. You're just skilled in martial arts at most. Our team captain is a 6th-tier evolved being. The 4th-tier evolved being attempted to intimidate Yili by mentioning their captain. But unfortunately, if Yili were to be frightened away, would he still be called Yili? What's going on? a sudden voice reached Yi Li's ears. He followed the voice and saw two middle-aged men approaching. Both men appeared to be around 40 years old, with one being a 6th-tier evolved being and the other a 5th-tier evolved being. "It's the captain and vice-captain," exclaimed one of the members of the Golden Wind exploration team. Upon seeing their captain and vice-captain arriving, the members of the Golden Wind exploration team breathed a sigh of relief. The tension that had been building up in their throats finally subsided. "Captain, he wants to compete with us for the Heart of Darkness." A tier 4 evolved being pointed at Yi Li and said fiercely. The captain and deputy captain of the Golden Wind exploration team looked at Yi Li and looked him up and down before asking in a low voice, "Little brother, do you want to compete with our Golden Wind exploration team for the Heart of Darkness?" Hee hee. The captain of the Golden Wind exploration team was taken aback. "Why are you laughing?" He couldn't understand why Yi Li was still able to laugh in this situation, and neither could the vice-captain nor the other members. Only Xia she understood. She naturally knew that these people were like ants in front of Yi Li. "Do you really think I am here to compete with you for the Heart of Darkness?" Yi Li said lightly. The captain was puzzled. "Could it be that you're not here to compete with us for the Heart of Darkness?" Yi Li shook his head slowly. "Your brain is a good thing, too bad you don't have one. Accusing me, Yi Li, of competing with you for the Heart of Darkness? Are you even worthy?" Yi Li slowly asked. Silence, a long silence. The captain of the Golden Wind exploration team would never have dreamed that Yi Li would utter such arrogant words. He had thought that Yi Li had come to compete with them for the Heart of Darkness. Humph. However, the vice-captain of the Golden Wind exploration team snorted coldly. He glared at Yi Li and angrily shouted, "Kid, do you know who we are?" Yi Li smiled again. "Aren't you just ants?" With this statement, everyone in the Golden Wind exploration team was furious. The vice-captain was even more enraged. "Kid, we are the Golden Wind exploration team." He assumed that anyone who dared to enter the inner circle of the Falling Stone Mountain range must have heard of the reputation of his Golden Wind exploration team. But unfortunately, he never would have imagined that Yi Li's face remained calm and unaffected by their threats. "Kid, I'll give you a chance to leave this place, or else don't blame me for being impolite," the vice-captain shouted in anger. Chapter 329, Turn them all into zombies. Upon hearing these words, the members of the Golden Wind exploration team couldn't help but smile. Although the scene of Yi Li's body enduring a blade and breaking it with a single hand had been terrifying, they assumed it was merely a display of martial arts skill. Now that the captain and vice-captain were present, they wondered how Yi Li could still be so arrogant. Hee hee, Yi Li smiled again. Upon seeing the smile on Yi Li's face, the vice-captain of the Golden Wind exploration team became even angrier. "Brat, you can still laugh." He really didn't understand how a person could still laugh when he was about to die. "Why wouldn't I smile? Don't tell me you don't realize that you're already dead?" Yi Li said calmly. When these words came out, everyone from the Golden Wind exploration team was stunned. He still dared to say such things. "You could have lived peacefully, but unfortunately, you've provoked me, Yi Li. How about one turn you all into zombies?" Yi Li suggested. "Turn us into zombies?" The members of the Golden Wind exploration team were dumbfounded. They couldn't fathom what Yi Li meant. Yi Li didn't want to waste more words on them and released Alda from the system space. When the Golden Wind exploration team suddenly saw Alda appear, they all instinctively took 3 steps back. But when they looked into Alda's eyes, they were even more horrified. "ANI, 9th tier zombie." The captain of the Golden Wind exploration team widened his eyes, finding it hard to believe. The others were no different, their eyes were wide open, and the terror on their faces was beyond description. Even if they racked their brains, they couldn't have imagined that a 9th-tier zombie would appear. "Alda, turn them into zombies," Yi Li said calmly. As he spoke, Ada began to take action. The strongest members of the Golden Wind exploration team were only 6th-tier evolved beings, and in front of Ada, they were pitifully weak. Ah! In an instant, all the members of the Golden Wind exploration team were turned into zombies. The captain and vice-captain of the Golden Wind exploration team saw this and were terrified. They turned and fled at the fastest speed they had ever achieved in their lives. However, if they managed to escape from Ada, was Ada still Alda? Roar! Ada roared and swiftly caught up to the captain and vice-captain, turning them into zombies as well. Yili opened the synthesis grid in his mind and synthesized all the members of the Golden Wind exploration team into zombies. Not bad, he managed to create a 3rd-tier male zombie. After putting Alda and the 3rd-tier male zombie into the system space, Yili looked at Xiaoxi and said, "Let's go." Xiaoxi nodded. After spending several days with Yili, she had come to understand that in the face of events, Yili remained unfazed, no matter what happened. As soon as Yili took a step forward, the sound of helicopter rotors could be heard. Whir, whir, whir. In an instant, a strong wind began to blow. Yili nodded slightly. He saw 2 armed helicopters hovering in the sky, about to land. There were prominent letters on the helicopters, Xia. She was surprised. My family's helicopters. 2 armed helicopters began to descend, and more than a dozen people disembarked. Dad! She called out to a man in his 50s who appeared to be about 50 years old. She rushed over to him. The man was taken aback. Sierra, you're not dead. Chapter 330, Xiaoxi leaves. Dad, what are you saying? Xiaoxi looked at the middle-aged man and said. The middle-aged man quickly patted his forehead and said, Sierra, Gubai said you died inside the inner area of Falling Stone Mountain, and he was quite certain of it. So, I led people to come and look for you. Thank goodness you're really okay. Xiaoxi had mixed feelings upon hearing this. She secretly glanced at Yili. If it weren't for him, she would have become the wolf's prey a long time ago. The middle-aged man was named Xia Hong, the head of the Xia family in the Sky Blue Bay City, an 8th-tier evolved being. Sierra, who is he? Xia Hong looked at Yili and asked. Dad, Xiaoxi hesitated and didn't know how to explain to her father. She was afraid that speaking the truth might displease Yili. Seeing that Xiaoxi wanted to say something but hesitated, Xia Hong became a little puzzled. He looked at Xia Zai's face and became even more puzzled. He remembered that Xia used to be as cold as ice. Why did she seem to be? Xia Hong was sure that something must have happened in the past few days to change Sierra's personality. And the young man in front of him, he must be the key to this transformation in Sierra's personality. Thinking of this, Xia Hong walked up to Yili and looked at his face. He couldn't help but be shocked. When he was young, he was undoubtedly a heartthrob in the Sky Blue Bay City, and he had captured the hearts of countless girls. However, compared to Yili, it was like one in the sky and the other on the ground. Who are you? Xia Hong asked Yili. Yili looked at Xia Hong indifferently. Xia Hong was dressed in a military uniform and appeared to be around 50 years old. Despite his age, he exuded a powerful and dignified aura, and his face seemed light golden. Do you think I need to answer you? Yili replied calmly. When these words came out, not only Xia Hong but also all the genetic warriors from the Xia family who had come were shocked. None of them had ever heard anyone speak to the family head in such a manner. Xia Hong was stunned as he stared at Yili. He was also a bit dazed. As a prominent figure in the Sky Blue Bay City and an 8th-tier evolved being, he had never encountered someone like Yili before. Since you're her father, take her away from here, Yili said calmly. Having Xia Zai's father here was convenient. It was a good opportunity to take Xiaoxi away. At this point, Yili still had no idea about the level of danger within this dark land. Xia Hong frowned when he heard Yili's words. He felt as though Yili was ordering him, and he had never encountered such a person before. Noticing that something was amiss, Xia Shi quickly walked to her father's side. "Dad, let's go back," Xia Shi said to Xia Hong. Although she felt a bit reluctant to leave Yili, since Yili had said so, she had to go back. Xia Hong had originally wanted to say something to Yili, but Xia Shi forcibly pulled him away. She understood that with Xia's family members present, they were no match for Yili and the Apocalypse Legion. She didn't want the Xia family members to be turned into zombies. Whir. The two armed helicopters began to take off and soon disappeared from Yili's sight. Yili thought that he would enter the Dark Land next. He released the army of the post-apocalyptic world from the system space and slowly walked towards the Dark Land. In no time, Yili entered the Dark Land. It was a pitch-black land with no signs of life. Sunlight could barely penetrate, and it sent shivers down one's spine. What met Yili's eyes were terrifying graves, one after another. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.